I got chills when I saw this. Now, you may not know how or why it's scary to see dancing ladies showing off a harvest of rice. I mean, you probably find the maggots a little scarier. But let me tell you, when China starts doing food production propaganda, something is seriously wrong. You're gonna wanna stick around to see why dancing rice ladies are so scary. But first, the maggot meat. What's going on with that? Do you want to glow like the moon? Do you want to be the brightest star in the party? Well, you better take a look at Exter's Eclipse, the coolest new wallet from an already fantastically cool brand. Not only is it a very stylish white, which I particularly like, but it also glows in the dark. Imagine you're out doing your thing and you want to impress someone. What better way than to pull out a glowing wallet? It still retains all the fantastic features of an Exter wallet, for example, the push button that fans out the cards and always gets me compliments every time I pull it out. But it also just looks awesome. Take advantage of Exter's current sale. It's a Black Friday deal. If you go to partner.exter.com/LaoY86 and use the code LaoY86, you're gonna get up to 55% off. Not only could you pick up this awesome wallet with that code, but you could also check out their other stuff because they have some fantastic stuff. I'm proud to be a partner of Exter. Thanks. Now let's be honest. We don't usually look to poor countries for high food safety standards, but I've been all over the world and I never got more sick than I did in China. Now, China isn't as poor as, say, Mongolia, but it certainly has more food issues. That's because China has a problem with corruption and food safety and quality control, all kinds of stuff like that. Holy hell, did you see that guy jump? You ever seen a maggot jump like that? I didn't know they did that, but maybe they do in China. Let's see that in slow motion. How could a little maggot like that jump so far? I feel like the little dude was like, yo, this food is so rotten, I am out of here. I mean, that guy could be in the Olympics. Anyway, I've had it all. I've had hornets, like Asian giant hornets. I've had the maggot larvae of those, I've eaten those. I've had pig brains, I've had snakes and scorpions and worms and centipedes and goat cooked within itself. I had a hot pot made out of cow shit and cow vomit. You name it, I ate it. But it's not the weird food that's the issue, it's the food scandals that have left people dead and have riddled the country for a long time now. And recently, people have been posting videos of their packaged meat in China containing maggots inside of the package. There's a reason for this. First of all, during COVID lockdown, where people were brutally locked in their homes for months at a time, some of them starving, entire industry chains stopped working. When all of that production stopped, all that food that was on the line was left to waste. In fact, during lockdown, countless tons of food was promised to starving people in their apartments, but due to corruption and lack of accountability, countless tons of food was also left to rot and waste. Food that was packaged needed to be moved, or the entire economy was gonna go under. China's still pretending that it's recovered from all the economic disasters during lockdown, but it has not. In fact, according to the Council on Foreign Relations, China's reliance on imported food has skyrocketed. Between 2000 and 2020, the country's food self-sufficiency ratio decreased from 93.6% to 65.8%. That's nearly a 30% drop. Changing diet patterns have also driven up China's imports of edible oils and sugars and meats and processed foods. And in 2021, the country's edible oil import dependency ratio reached nearly 70%, almost as high as crude oil import dependence. That's a huge jump. Between 2013 and 2019, China lost more than 5% of its arable land, and I'm talking about the whole country. to factors such as excess fertilizer use and land neglect, and that's according to China's own internal government figures that it actually calculated and then put out to the public. Water's even worse. In fact, it's been talked about that up to 90% of China's fresh water is unusable at this point. Overuse of fertilizers and horrible pesticides have been a massive issue. In fact, I saw it with my own eyes in Panjin in Liaoning province in northern China. Bottles and bottles of horrible chemicals just dumped into the rice paddies. China's food crisis has also gotten worse as time has progressed. China is currently investing in Africa and other countries in developing regions to offset its issues with food production. And also, China's blue water fishing fleet is by far the world's largest and includes 12,490 unique vessels that were observed to have been fishing outside of China's internationally recognized EEZ zones. In fact, China's rapacious fishing fleet has decimated the fish supply of the entire world, but it's having the worst effect on poor countries that can't feed themselves. The hunger problem is perhaps the worst in North Korea, where the North Korean government chases off its own citizens' fishing vessels to make room for the Chinese fishing boats that deplete the very scarce protein that North Koreans need so badly. Now, I'm gonna make a weird, incredibly nerdy Star Wars analogy, so please bear with me, but think of the Chinese government as the Hutts, Jabba the Hutt. And the Chinese people are the helpless victims of many races and creeds that live under their subjugation. Hutts, like Jabba, were wealthy and powerful tyrants that control and enslave the helpless people of the planets that they go on to subjugate. And in this case, it's the Chinese government with China. Now in Star Wars, the Hutts come from a planet called Nal Hutta. Though Nal Hutta eventually did become a swampy and greasy planet, as we know in canon, it wasn't always such. It was previously a rich jungle until the Hutts polluted it so badly that it turned it into a marshy, greasy, stagnant environment. Now, when the Hutts destroyed their planet and had sufficiently subjugated the people of their own planet, they went to other planets to subjugate others, and they took their resources. We can see this with the Chinese government project, the Belt and Road Initiative. China is trying to expand across the world, especially into developing countries, in exchange for food and ports and political influence. And while this attempt may work long term, China's public perception abroad is tanking. Look at any Pew Research poll and you will see that something needs to be done for China to regain influence abroad, because it's not looking pretty. Year on year, public perception of China keeps getting worse. So if China can't control public opinion abroad, at least they can do it at home, right? Well, the Chinese government is an expert at domestic propaganda. I mean, propaganda for its own people in China. And it has been assuring its people that everything is a-okay and that there's nothing to worry about in regards to food and water. And that leads me to the scary part. You remember those rice dancing ladies in the beginning? Well, this is Chairman Mao era stuff. When the entire country was starving to death, and I'm talking about tens of millions of people in the 50s and 60s, it was common to see propaganda highlighting rice harvests and the big bounties that the Chinese government was bringing. While people starved, they saw murals and read in the papers that China was producing a surplus of grain and that there was nothing to worry about. Well, that propaganda is back. If you go to any state media channel on the Chinese internet, you'll be inundated with rice production propaganda. I don't want to say that the old bad days are back, and I certainly hope that they're not. But China does have a habit of repeating mistakes. Anyways, don't eat maggots, stay well, and check out my live show every Friday. It's called The China Show. It's all about China's current events and the only place you need to be to stay up to date on what's happening in China. Thanks.